We're here with MBB Media's Matthias Tesi Baur, and we're talking about the German and Chinese markets. Matthias has worked for UBM and Messe Frankfurt, among other companies, and he's took a recent trip to China. And I was wondering if you can firstly outline your experience in the German and the Chinese markets.
Yeah, absolutely, with pleasure. I started, as you just said, my career in the German market. I worked for Messe Frankfurt, that was in 1999. Actually, before that, it was a student job to build booths. I worked for a booth building company, and we drove to Frankfurt, Hanover, Munich, and built the stands for the exhibitors. And in this time, exhibitions were for me just absolutely massively big events, 10 halls, 15 halls. I remember I built a booth at CeBIT, and you had no chance to see all exhibitors in 3 days because it was so big. We talked about 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 exhibitors.
And so tell us what you learned on your recent trip to China.
Oh, it was massively interesting. I went just before Christmas. I went to China to teach on a training course of CCPIT, and I had the chance to meet the Director General, Mr. Xunqi from CCPIT, and actually to interview him for my newsletter. And the perspective of Chinese exhibition executives are slightly different to what I expected, if I'm very honest. So he gave me an extremely interesting insight how the Chinese government and also the Chinese industry is approaching the exhibition industry. China currently has a growth rate, I think it was just announced last week, of 6.5%. So they dropped from 10, 11, 12% 5-6 years ago to 6.5%, which is for Europeans an absolutely dream growth rate. But for a country like China with 1.2 billion people and with the infrastructure, this is, they need that kind of growth rate only to maintain their status quo. So 6% growth rate is not good news for a country like China.
So tell us about the cultural differences you noticed in China.
One is for sure, same as you have in between European countries, is the way how you are polite to the other person. And if you are polite, you always kind of code your language into a polite way, and but actually you don't say what you mean because you want to make your business partner feel more comfortable by dealing with you. That's already a big difference between our cultures. The Germans are much more direct. Yeah, they don't have a filter between brain and mouth. Everything what they think comes out. English people are extremely polite, and they have many filters which confuse Germans from time to time. In China and in Asia, it's even more so that you need to learn the unwritten rules of making business and the unwritten rules of being polite. One big difference between Europeans and between Asian people is, or specifically Chinese people, is in Europe you build a relationship on a personal level and you build a company relationship. And let's say our boss companies are in a fierce competition and they don't like each other. That wouldn't block us from being still friendly with each other. We still could go after working hours to a pub and have a beer together. You work for Mercedes, I work for Volkswagen, but we still have a relationship, or we can build up a business relationship with each other. This is less possible in the Asian culture or in the Chinese culture. If your companies are competing with each other, also the people tend to talk less with each other because of the organization they are working for are not happy with each other.
So what sorts of German business practices were the Chinese market looking to learn from?
Since I have a more outside view, I look back to my country and said, actually, yeah, this is something we don't do too wrong or too bad. And this is two things: the dedication to quality and the dedication to get something right. And this is something, yeah, it is very German, but it results in great products. So to go into a concept and to really think it through and to be always driven by the question that you say, I want to put something in the market that is leading in terms of quality. I think whilst other cultures more happy to do things very, very quickly, which has other advantages as well. The German way sometimes is a way that is a bit slower, takes a bit longer. We take longer before we have profitability. The German exhibition industry is less profitable than the British exhibition industry. So it has a lot of disadvantages, but it has one advantage. It brings the best product to the customer, and therefore it's a long-lasting strategy. And this is something I'm not sure if other cultures needs to learn that from the German culture.
So I guess that begs the question, what's the difference between the German and the English markets?
When you ask me what is the biggest difference between the German culture and the English culture, I think the Germans, as I said, they think everything so through, and they are so precise that Germans always have a good plan A. And normally that plan A works. And when it doesn't work, Germans always become very nervous and they say who is to blame and who has not think the plan A through correctly. English people think exactly the other way around. So their plan A most often doesn't work. So they always have a plan B, but that plan B is brilliant, and they react much more relaxed because nobody is expecting that the plan A would work. So they are always very happy to jump immediately on the plan B, and that way they make very good business as well. So I think that's the biggest culture, is Germans plan longer, English people are more relaxed and have a good replacement bus station or replacement plan, and that way London operates as a great city.
So how do you see the Chinese and European markets working together in the future? And do you think there's an appetite for geocloned European shows in China?
Well, I think the way how these two markets work together in future, I think when you look at UBM and when you look at Reed Exhibitions, you actually have two very good role models. The office of UBM in Hong Kong is a highly developed professional office running absolutely big shows, absolutely professionally. When you look at the teams, you will find Europeans, you will find Asians, very, very skilled people. And this is how we should work together in general in future, also the smaller companies or the associations, and on all different levels. It was in the past, it was a little bit how we shift exhibition knowledge from the west to the east, how we shift products from the east to the west. We all had our expertise where we were good in. I think this time or this period is over. I think we can look each other in the eyes really on the same level. And we are all exhibition people. It doesn't matter from which country you are coming from, and it also doesn't matter from which continent you are coming from. So whoever brings more to the table should lead in a joint venture.